You're watching The Breakfast Club.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ Envy, Angela Yee, Charlamagne the God. We are The Breakfast Club. We got a special guest in the building.
Oh, we've been waiting for him to come up here for a while now.
Van Jones.
Van Jones is here.
In the house.
He has a new book, Beyond the Messy Truth, How We Came Apart, How We Come Together. Now, Van, early on, I was a believer that we had to have engagers and resistors, meaning we have to have people who engage with this administration, and we had to have people who resist. But now I see no point in engaging whatsoever. So, I often wonder, why do you continue to give Trump the benefit of the doubt?
Oh, I'm not giving Trump the benefit of the doubt. I mean, he's proven himself to be a horrific dumpster fire of racism and ignorance. And, we have the whole show just talking about how terrible he is. I'm trying to figure out how the people who are not crazy, because the crazy is now taking over, can get something done. So my book, Beyond the Messy Truth, is part of a crusade against crazy, and trying to show how, really, frankly, you don't get an outcome this messed up unless both parties are way off track. And so I'm trying to actually give some tough love to both parties, because I don't want this to happen again. People act like this couldn't happen again. He could be reelected. He could be reelected, and you could have a Ivanka Trump in there. Unless we figure out what we can do differently, we are going to be in a world of hurt.
Now,
I'm glad to hear you say that, Van, because sometimes I be thinking you're in the sunken place. I don't know.
Yeah, why
I
you say
said that several times.
I be wondering sometimes, because you was so harsh against Trump during the campaign. You even called it a white lash.
Yes, and that's in the book too.
It's in the book, the chapter in the book. You said it's a white lash. It's a myth. The myth and reality is a white lash. But then sometimes I just feel like you give Trump the benefit of the doubt, and I wonder why.
Well, listen, I don't know what you mean by that. If Trump says something that makes sense, I say, look, Trump said something that made sense. When he says something that doesn't make any sense, I whoop his butt. So 99% of the time, I'm whooping him. So for whatever reason, the one or two times I've tried to listen, I'm not going to just sit up here and not call it honest. My job in the news,
correct.
If he says something good, even if it's one time out of 1,000, I'm gonna say, you know what, he had a point there. And then our folk will go crazy, like, Van Jones done joined the Klan. I'm like, come on now.
Because we're trying to figure out what he's done that's good. Like, what could you say in this campaign that he's done that's good?
Listen, he has done almost nothing that's good. There were a couple of moments in some speeches where I thought he actually sounded like a president.
Yeah, when he honored the Navy SEAL.
And look, and I'm gonna tell you what, my dad was a veteran. I don't care what anybody says. When they walked into that chamber, the Democrats were on one side, Republicans on the other side. When that woman stood up, I give him that credit. But I also, that whole night, was whooping his butt behind. That same night, he was already letting you know he was coming after the Dreamers. I mean, and I was on him for that. People went crazy. But listen, I don't want to talk about me.
Because you said in that moment he became president.
Absolutely.
Like, come on.
Well, listen, how much have I said on TV you've agreed with?
Oh, a lot.
Yeah, so what's wrong with us that we will freak out about one thing? We're so fragile. If somebody says one thing we don't agree with, that becomes the whole conversation. Here's what I want you guys to think about. This year, the work that I do, because I'm only on CNN like a few minutes a day, we were able to pass 5 bills in California to change the juvenile justice system, to try to get some of our young people home. I work with something called the Dream Corps Love Army. I'm an actual activist. I'm not just a pundit. And as a result of that, we're learning some stuff. I think that there's way more good people out here who really understand that Trump ain't about nothing, but we aren't showing them how they could be about something. And so my book is really a roadmap toward how we can actually be about something. Fine, some people are going to be Republicans, some people are going to be Democrats, some people are going to be black, white, different regions. But you got the criminal justice system that is so broken that even the Republicans admit it. How do we use that to get some folk home? We've got an addiction crisis. Now it's not just our folks addicted to narcotics. White folk now addicted to opioids. They're dropping like flies. How do you use that to get something done for our folk and for everybody? Nobody is getting the right education now. These jobs of the future with high tech and drones, and nobody's getting taught that. White, black, green, purple. Can we come together on that? In other words, it's not good enough just to be anti-Trump. We have to be for our community and for real solutions. And that's what my book is about. My book is a roadmap with real solutions, real answers, stuff we can get done, Even if some people stay Republicans, fine. But you can be a Republican and not support a complete lunatic.
Right, which just actually happened in the news this morning. They were talking about Senator Corker, yes.
From my home state of Tennessee.
Right, and he was even talking about Donald Trump and not agreeing with him. And Donald Trump attacked him and said the reason he did it was because he wasn't endorsing him for re-election. But he was saying, look, this guy is running the White House like it's a reality show.
Yeah, and he even said it was a daycare center and an
adult
daycare center. Now that is, when you have a Southern, because he's from my home state of Tennessee, when you have a Southern Republican going at him like that, that lets you know, on the one hand, it's a positive, but also you're having a complete breakdown now. I mean, and I'm going to tell you right now, if you're waiting for the Democrats or the Republicans to fix it, you're going to be waiting for a long time, because now the crazy is just taking over. Meanwhile, at the grassroots level, look at what happened in Puerto Rico. The island was almost wiped off the map. The president's playing golf. But what happened? The people stood up. Puerto Rican celebrities stood up. I mean, they were sending, I'm with Rock Nation, Jay-Z and them, they were sending like plane loads full of stuff. People are going to have to do that, step up, and deal with stuff. And the other thing I just want to say with regard to this book, I went to West Virginia. I went to Indiana. I went to all these red so-called counties and stuff where people voted for Trump. I wanted to talk with them. Why would you vote for somebody who, if your child acted like him, you would put him in timeout or call a psychiatrist? They got the same problems we got. They got no jobs, just like us. They got drug problems, just like us. Their courts don't work, just like us. And yet, common pain is not leading to common purpose. And I realize we're getting tricked. We got poor white folk mad at poor black folk and poor Muslims and poor Latinos, and we mad at them. And the only people winning are the rich, elite, the same people at the top. So my book is trying to okay, guys, fine, we're not going to agree on everything, but we don't have to disagree on everything, and we definitely don't have to disrespect. And my concern about what Trump is doing is much worse than his policies. Frankly, he's so incompetent that a lot of his policies are not getting passed. He's putting them up there, they get knocked down in court, he's got to start over. Thank goodness he's an incompetent bigot, because if he were a competent bigot, we'd have problems. But it's not just what he's doing to the policies, he's changing the culture now. Right. You're starting to get to where everybody is angry and divisive and paranoid and crazy like him. And I'm saying, listen, I'm a follower of Obama and her husband. I love her husband too, but I'm a follower of Obama. She said, when they go low, we go high. And I believe that's the right strategy, because he needs everybody mad. He needs everybody fighting each other. Well, you said that on TV. Why'd you tweet that? Blah, 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 blah. Hold on a second. As long as that is the atmosphere, Trumpism is winning, even when Trump is not. I want to create an atmosphere where the good people, I don't care what party you're in, if you don't want to see people getting shot up, cities getting wiped off the map by hurricanes, and the government not doing anything, we should be working together on something. Do you think the damage is irreparable at this point? I don't think anything is irreparable. I do a lot of work in prisons, and I've seen people who lives have been horrifically, from a child, messed up, and have made mistakes, and then become some of the best people you've ever met, and come home and are heroes. So I know what resilience is. I know what's possible, but we have to. Here's the thing. I don't know what we should do. I know what we should stop doing. But part of what we got to stop doing is we're almost addicted now to all the madness. We're almost adapted to the absurdity, and we think that we're doing well just by pointing out the absurdity. I want to point out the absurdity, but I also want to point out some real solutions. We're discussing problems, but not discussing solutions. I was going to say that. How do we get to some real solutions? We talk about everything else, but the main problem in an answer. Yeah, for instance, like this whole NFL controversy. Correct. People forget it started out about police community relations. Yes. Police brutality. That's why Kaepernick kneeled in the first place. That's what it was all about. Yes. Now it's about free speech for athletes. It's about the American flag. It's about Cap getting a job. It's all kind of other stuff. And look, I'm for Cap getting a job. I'm for free speech. They go, oh, well, it's about insulting soldiers. Nobody said a word about soldiers. But now you see how far off the point we are? I agree 100%. We are so far off the point. Now, in the book, I point out real, serious criminal justice reform that's possible to pass, because Republicans have been passing some of this stuff in their states. We don't ever jump on and say, hold on a second, if Kasich in Ohio and Deal in Georgia and Rick Perry in Texas can close prisons, we should be closing them everywhere. Now, you have a blueprint in the book, right? Yes. That you feel is effective. Why do you think this blueprint will be effective, and what's your blueprint? Well, the blueprint is basically, it lays out a couple of issues that if you assume that most Republicans are going to stay Republicans, then fine. Then be better Republicans. Don't be a Republican falling behind a lunatic. Be a good Republican. And if you assume most Democrats are going to stay Democrats, then good. Let's be better, more effective, solution-oriented Democrats. What would that open up the door for? Criminal justice reform would be the first thing you could get done because you have Republicans and Democrats on board with that. You got white folk and black folk and brown folk who are on board with that. This Khalif Browder documentary that I got a chance to be a part of is blowing up. People are looking at that, black and white. Hey, what? We putting children in jail? They killed themselves? They ain't been convicted of anything? Let's do something. So that's one positive. It's a negative, but there's a positive solution we can get something done about. Also, like I said, this addiction crisis, when it was just us, nobody cared. Let's just be honest. When it was just us, nobody cared. But now there are more people dropping dead from these painkiller overdoses today than were dropping dead of HIV AIDS at the height of the crisis in the 80s. And it's mostly these red, Republican districts. So now they have an interest in figuring out what are we going to do. And they don't want to lock everybody up behind it. So there's an opportunity there. And the last thing I'm going to say is, listen, all the jobs that are coming down the pipe, nobody's being trained for. Nobody I know knows how to work on artificial intelligence, drones, smart screens, virtual reality, augmented reality. Where's the job training programs for that?
Where are they going to make the robots?
The robots going to tell me to have a job.
So then the poor white people going to be mad at the robots.
Exactly. So we have an opportunity to focus on some of that sort of stuff. And then the other thing is, so that's policy. Everybody doesn't work on policy. The other thing in the book, it's a lot of resources for how to get involved. Because a lot more people would want to get involved than know how to get involved. A lot more people would want to be a part of the solution than know how. So we just wind up tweeting each other. So we put about a third of the book is just different resources, different groups you can join, documentaries you can watch, books you can buy, podcasts you can subscribe to, so that we can start having a more intelligent conversation.
Now Cut 50, that's your mass incarceration organization, right?
Yes, sir.
How are you making any progress? And what challenges have you seen, like with the Trump administration and with Attorney General Jeff Sessions?
Well, look, I mean, Jeff Sessions has just put the car in reverse and is backing up, not over Obama's policy, but over our communities. Because Obama and Eric Holder, when they were there, I mean, listen, they just looked at the numbers and said, we're locking up all these people for stuff that, rich folks' children do every day.
Right, and you talked about that in the book because you went to Yale for law school. And you said in New Haven, in that community, people were going to jail for using drugs, but students were going to rehab.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy. I mean, I grew up in the rural South. My dad was born in poverty and segregation. He joined the military to get out. He put himself through college, through Lane College, and if anybody knows Lane College, a little small black college in the South. He married the college president's daughter with my mother, put his brother through college, put his cousin through college. My mom and my dad put me and my sister through college. So my dad got us, this whole family, out of poverty. I wound up going to Yale Law School. I get to Yale, the rich folks' children are doing more drugs than any poor kid has ever seen. And none of them going to jail. The police will drive past the campus with their lights flashing to go to the hood and put our kids in jail.
It's not a war on drugs in their community.
No, it's not. Yeah. It's called experimenting with drugs. They don't even call it a crime. It's, they're experimenting with drugs. So, for me, I know for sure that we can do better with kids who get in trouble with drugs because we do it for rich folks' kids.
Right.
You don't put rich folks' kids in prison. You put them in rehab. And so Obama knew that. Obama went to Harvard. Eric Holder knew that. So they put in place policies to start pushing us in a positive direction and a fair direction. Now Trump is got Sessions backing up over those policies and over our people. That's terrible. Here's the good news, though. Only 10% of the people who go to jail go to federal jail. 90% is state and local. And at state and local, we're finding Republicans and Democrats, black, white, and Latino, who say, if nothing else, we don't want to spend this much money locking folk up. We don't have this much money. And so Cut 50, like I said, this year we got 5 bills passed in California. We hope the governor signs it. That's going to actually change our juvenile justice system to help bring more of our young people home, get them the help that they need. This is under the era of Trump. At the same time, those Trump voters who everybody's mad at, I said, listen, hurt people holler. They don't like Black Lives Matter, but they're hollering for a reason. If these Trump voters are so upset, they're going to go vote for somebody that they wouldn't even want at their dinner table the way he acts. Let me go talk to them. I went to coal country, and I found that a lot of these coal miners, 20,000 of them, had lost their health insurance, and nobody did anything about it. So we worked with them and got them their health insurance back. Now, are they going to then turn around and help us or vote for Democrats? No, not at all. but they might vote for a better Republican next time if they realize that everybody in the country is not against them. We have to be willing, especially African Americans. We have a tradition of moral leadership in this country that if you took the black community out of America, it would be a very terrible place. We've stood up for every cause, every constituency, against every war, every social program, all the positive stuff in America we are disproportionately responsible for. So when people get into so much pain and anguish that they start going behind neo-Nazis and crazy people, I think we have something to say to them. I think we say, listen, we're not going to turn on each other. We're going to turn to each other.
Black people keep the country civilized.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's one of the things that I don't want us to get away from. We're getting so frustrated by having somebody like him in office that it's now a character test for us. Are we going to be better or are we going to be bitter? Are we going to turn on each other too and go the Trump way? Or are we actually going to unite more? And part of uniting more is us not being so tough on, this whole dragging on Twitter culture, all type of stuff. I don't see that giving us our strength back.
Now, how do we have those conversations? Back. When Steve Harvey tried to have a conversation, black community turned on him. How do we begin those conversations?
You're having them too, Van. I mean, like you talk in your book about how you have a desire, to find compassion for all sides, and you explain some of your personal reasons for that. And if you ever watch The Messy Truth on CNN, we see you going out there having those tough conversations.
Yeah, look, I think that it's important for us to really recognize that there are these pockets of pain out there in the white community. Mm-hmm. And if we don't go out there, who's going to go out there? These neo-Nazis are going to go out there. And the fact that we never showed up, they use that against us. They say, oh, well, see, look, they only care about themselves. We should only care about ourselves.
But they don't come to our side neither, though.
That's a good point.
I feel like we're always trying to extend an olive branch and reach out to them, but they never come to the hood.
Yeah, well, listen, I think that that's correct, but it also just goes back to the same point we were just talking about. We've always exerted that moral leadership. Look, it's not fair. It's not fair, but it's required. If we started acting like them, it's a wrap. You know what I mean? It's like, there's a lot, not all of them, but there's a lot of them that act terrible, and that is a reason for us to act better, not worse. And I know it's tough. People say, listen, I'm tired. I'm at work. I got to hear this crap at work. I'm getting harassed on the street corner by police. I go to the airport. People look at me funny. Now you telling me I have to be the moral one?
You're a black identity extremist?
Exactly. Now the FBI come at you saying you're a black identity extremist, and you tell me I've got to be the moral one? And here's my answer. Yes.
Why is it such a personal thing for you, though? I mean, you discussed some of it in the book, but can you tell us a few now?
Look, I grew up in the rural South in a small town where, black folks of modest means and white folks of modest means actually lived in, the town wasn't big enough for us to be too far apart. We went to the same schools.
So did I.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, I have a little bit more of an understanding. And also, when I got my first job, it was a manual labor job with a lot of white guys. And, I heard everything, and, you've seen that movie. But what happened was I went to college, and they didn't. Mm-hmm. I got a minority scholarship. They didn't even, enroll. Within a couple of years at that same newspaper, I went from being a manual laborer to being a reporter, and they went from being manual laborers to being laid off. Mm. And I watched that, and I'm like, you know what? I can understand. I'm not saying I forgive it, but I can understand how somebody could get in that man's ear,
right, and
say, look, see, he got ahead.
You even came up with a fictional character in the book that kind of describes that whole process and why someone who might be a white person will think the way that they think about black people. And
the thing about it is, I don't have to agree with that, but I need to understand. And the thing, listen, if you look at, the Black Lives Matter movement, the young people who are part of Black Lives Matter, just like back in the 60s, the young people who are part of SNCC, John Lewis is still a leader. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the young people who are leading Black Lives Matter, who are leading the Dreamers, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, that's going to be your leadership. Mm-hmm. Because look at how the courage they're showing right now against Trump. And so I just want them to have the highest vibration possible. I just want them to be like, you know what? I'm going to take care of my community, but I'm not going to let you get, if you're a coal miner and you got black lung disease and you dying and they ain't going to get, I will help you too. I'm that big. That's how Mandela was. Mandela could have been, I hate all y'all. I mean, they had him in prison for 27 years.
Right.
And he came out of prison and said, you know what? I'm good. I got a South Africa in mind where my people can do well and your people can do well, and I'm not just gonna call you out. I'm going to call you up and call you in. You're going to help me make this country better. That's where I think our movement has to go. And I think Trump is a character test because we just react to him, we will become him. I don't want to feed what we're fighting. I don't want to fuel what we're fighting. He needs us to go low. And Michelle Obama's correct. No, we're not going to come down to his level. We're not going to sit up here and pretend that nobody is hurting in America. We know people are hurting all over. Give us our respect. Listen to us. We want to be understood, but we also are willing to understand. That's what my book is about. And like I said, I can't say it all, but it's in the book. And my book is a cure for the crazy. I'm on a crusade against crazy. And I'm telling you, we could turn this thing around. I don't want 2020 to be a repeat.
Yeah, I like a lot of the things you're saying because I know that in 2020, just being anti-Trump is not going to be enough to get him out the White House.
It's not. And the thing is, liberals and progressives, God bless liberals and progressives, but we often think that we're the smart ones and that the Republicans are like the dummies. I'm going to tell you right now, if you keep doing exactly the same thing, exactly the same way, you're going to have exactly the same outcome, which means this guy could be reelected. I do not see Republicans, this sorry Republican Party, as they are right now. They could be better, but right now, I don't see them impeaching him. I haven't seen them do anything that shows any kind of courage yet. Maybe they will tomorrow. I don't think he's going to be impeached. I think he's going to run for reelection. And if we don't figure out something different, he could be there for 8 years and then Ivanka could run. So what I want to say to people is, I don't expect everybody to agree with everything I said. I don't agree with everything that you say or anybody else says. But I do think we need to up-level the conversation. We've got to get ready so that at the midterm elections, we're coming with solutions that some of these white guys who voted for Trump and maybe they didn't get their needs met and maybe they're starting to feel like they've been lied to, but then they look over here, we have nothing to say to them except F you for voting for Trump. Well, then they're going to stay over there. But if we say, listen, we're trying to get your kid educated, my kid educated. We're trying to get your kid out of prison, trying to get my kid out of prison. We're trying to get your kid off of drugs, trying to keep my kid off drugs. Let's work together. Then if even a small number of them switch or just say, you know what, I'm just going to sit this one out, that's how we win. And we're not talking about how we win. We're talking about how we're upset. But that's his strategy, to keep people upset. He's a chaos bringer. Jeb Bush said that from the beginning. He's a chaos bringer. So let's be some sanity bringers, some order bringers, some solution bringers, and see if we can beat him.
Is that the concept of the Love Army?
That's the lovearmy.org, It's people say, love, how can you love Donald Trump? How can you love these hateful people? I said, well, first of all, that's what Dr. King said. Dr. King said, and he was getting shot, his house was getting blown up. His friends were getting, lynched, bitten by dogs. And he said, I'm not going to let anybody bring me so low as to hate them. So that's important to me.
They still shot him, though.
They still shot him. And as a matter of fact, they shot a lot of other people we don't even talk about. But as a result, though, we wound up being able to be sitting here doing what we're doing. So I'm saying I'm not gonna replace Dr. Kingism with Trumpism in my heart. I'm not gonna throw Dr. King in a garbage can just because this dude's in the White House. I'm not gonna do that. I don't care what anybody says. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna stick with what we have been about. Number one, and then number two, when you have something called the lovearmy.org, don't forget the army part. We're not just sitting around singing Kumbaya. We're fighting. We're fighting for the dreamers. We're fighting to close these prisons. We're fighting for these Appalachians who don't have anything. We're fighting. But we're not going to let you turn us into haters. That way, even if I'm a hater and I win, I still lose because that's what he wants. Right. He wants us to be a hateful country. And so I'm not going to give him that.
So what do we do with the marches in Charlottesville?
Look, I am very proud of the people who went to confront those Nazis. And I don't call them alt-left and alt-right.
I call them crack-ass crackers, white devils.
I call them neo-Nazis. That's what they are. What I would say about it is that when you have neo-Nazis, actual neo-Nazis, terrorists in America, assassinating Americans with ISIS tactics of mowing people down with cars, murdering people, terrorists, and the government won't do anything about it, then I think we do have to go and bear witness and to stand up. At the same time, there's something called a Nazi. There's something called a former Nazi. There are people who've been in those hate groups, who have come out of those hate groups. And we got to pay attention to them too. How did you come out? Why did you come out? What can we tell these other people that will get them to come out? Because I want Trump to have to fight for every single person. I don't want to give him anybody. Just because somebody voted for you in November doesn't mean they're going to be with you in the next day.
Right.
So let's fight for all of them. So I'm really paying attention to these hate groups, how they market themselves. You know, now it's alt-right. No, you're just Nazis, but they won't call themselves by their name. Now, when you won't call yourself by your name, there's something wrong with your product. Mm-hmm. But how do we reach out to these former Nazis, who some of them are more hardcore anti-racist than just the average black person, and learn from them and incorporate them into what we're doing? We're not thinking that way. But, you know, that's how you begin to build a coalition to isolate him, where even people who used to be with him are now loud and proud for you. This is what the Mandelas used to do. This is what Ella Jo Baker, Fannie Lou Hamer, Dr. King used to do. That tradition of honestly looking, how do you build a coalition that can stop these people? We've got to go from the tweeting and the protesting only to including that. And that's really what the book is about.
Don't you think you should take a little page out of Trump's book, being that Trump caters to his base?
True.
So for us, shouldn't we just cater to the good people in society and say F everybody else? Because I don't think you'll ever be equal in the eyes of a racist.
Okay.
I just don't think a racist will ever want to deal with equality when it comes to you, because he just doesn't look at you as an equal.
True, but the way I see it, though, is somebody who is a racist today, by definition, you're correct, cannot possibly look at you as equal. That's by definition. If you're a racist, you can't. But I'm different now than I was 10 years ago. And that person I'm looking at right now might be different in 10 years. And that's what I'm saying, is that, yes, the fight between good and evil, the line between good and evil runs down the middle of every person. I've got good in me, I've got bad in me. In the course of my life, I've been one of the best dudes and one of the worst dudes. Mm-hmm. I've been, one of the most loving people and one of the most hateful, angry people in my own just my own life, my own journey. And so I'm not going to freeze, just like when I go into prisons. How can you work with these people in prison? They've committed murder, they've done this and that. Well, that's what they did at that moment. But I'm not going to flush them down the toilet because of what they did at that moment. Somebody might be marching with them tiki torches last week, but I'm not going to do Trump the favor of saying that person will only be that forever. Now, today, we're going to have to scrap. You know what I mean? Like right now, this minute, no, me and you are enemies, because you can't be marching through America killing people and being a terrorist against black people. But I'm still going to have in my heart the idea that tomorrow you might be better. And that's what Trump is trying to take away. Yes, we're divided today, but tomorrow always comes. And this fool is not going to be here forever. But the damage he does to our souls, to our hearts, to our humanity could be lasting if we let it. Right. And that's why, so you say, why do you give Trump, I get misheard. I'm not giving Trump the benefit. The jury is in on Trump. Mm-hmm. Trump is terrible, and he's not trying to change. But everybody who voted for him, even some of the people who are in his administration right now, some of them may come out and be our strongest allies if we are open to the possibility. And that's all I'm trying to fight for.
I agree, but then it's like, why are you not speaking out now? Why those people that are with Trump now aren't speaking out? Like, I can't trust you in the future.
Well, one person just did, as we talked about. And he said behind closed doors, a lot of the Republicans feel the same way.
Oh, I don't like that.
But for some reason...
Are they scared to come out? Like
cowardly.
Cowardly,
they're not
cowardly.
coming forward, but maybe at some point...
Courage is hard, man. Listen, I was in Washington, D.C. As you know, I worked for Obama for about 6 months. And I watched, man, I wish that I could say if I were in their position, I would do differently.
Right.
But the problem with them is all their money comes from the same place. All their friends, all their consultants, everybody's from the same place. So you're not just breaking with Trump. You're breaking with a whole squad of people. Right. And then once you break with that squad, where are you supposed to go? Who's going to give you a donation now? You've attacked the president. The reason Corker's doing what he's doing, he's retiring.
Yeah, he's not running again.
He's retiring. So he can say what he wants to say.
So it's not really democracy then?
Well, hey, listen, I think I agree with you. Democracy was not created in 1776. It wasn't created at the end of the Civil War. It wasn't created in the Civil Rights Movement. It's something that we have to try to create and recreate in every generation. And I'm telling you, especially with the platform you guys have here, you are speaking right now, listening to this show, are the leaders. That they're leaders today, tomorrow, for 20, 30 years. And so, I wrote the book for them. I really want to put something in people's hands that will really give people the ability to think and rethink. How are we going to deal with this? Mm-hmm. How are we going to actually, outmaneuver this? And I believe it can be done because, like I said, John Lewis was 19-year-old kid in those sit-in movements. He's still in Congress. And he's still making a difference. And when he passes a bill, nobody gives him any credit. But he's one of the most powerful people in Washington, D.C. 40 years later. And so I'm not worrying about Trump's tweets. Like I said, I get misunderstood because people expect me just to come on and just whoop him and whoop him and whoop him. 100% of the time. I whip him 99% of the time. But if I can find a little crack or a little crevice, I'll find that crack.
Find a little crack or what?
Crevice.
Crack or crevice.
Oh, okay.
Not crack.
I didn't say, oh, you said cracker. I didn't say that.
My goodness.
Now, you have a chapter in your book called Reclaiming Our Founding Dream. And you speak on the founding dream and the founding reality. Those two things are very different. Yes. I like that, though. Explain to the people what those are.
Well, the founding reality for America is terrible. I mean, people, oh, you know, the founders. Like, most of these dudes were slave owners. They wouldn't even let other white dudes vote unless they were rich. Women had zero rights. Women were basically property. Black people were property. They just killed Native Americans for no reason. So you can't deal with the founding reality, honestly, and say, this was amazing. We're so happy. Even Thomas Jefferson wrote in his diary, I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just. Jefferson thought God was going to strike America down. He was worried because he's a slave owner. And so that lets you know the founding reality was terrible. But it's the founding dream. That same Thomas Jefferson said, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all are created equal. So there's a big gap between the founding reality and the founding dream. And I feel like African Americans, women, other progressive forces have been working every generation to try to close the gap between the ugliness of that founding reality and the beauty of the founding dream. Now, what Trump would have us do is to just say, well, just screw America. America sucks. I'm not. No. That's giving him what he wants. So no, I'm not going to let you define America. Number one, I'm a ninth generation American. And I'm the first person in my family that was born with all my rights in 9 generations. Now, you just got here a generation ago, and you're going to tell me what America is? And you're the patriot? And you get to boss me and tell me when I'm supposed to stand up and sit down? No, brother. I'm sorry. Welcome to our country, number one. And we will let you know how we want to proceed. Now, to me, that's the most radical stand I can take, to say, no. This is my country. My family built this country. I'm not going to deny the pain ever, but I'm not going to let the pain have the last word.
Right.
Because that's who we are. I'm not going to let the pain have the last word. I'm going to tell you what the future is going to be. These movements that are coming up now, they are going to define America more than Donald Trump if we do not go down to his level.
Now in the book, you have a chapter, White Lash, Myths and Facts. And you once said Trump's victory was a white lash. You still stand by that? Yeah, it was. I said it at the time, and I say it again. It was a white lash in part against a black president and a changing country, and that's been proven to be true statistically and everything else. But it was also, I also said that night, it was other things as well. It was rebellion against the elites. It was a complete failure of the polling establishment, and a whole bunch of other stuff. But again, you can't deny the pain. I mean, that's true. I mean, how are you going to have somebody endorsed by the Ku Klux Klan and he can't figure out how to get out from under their endorsement and then say race had nothing to do with it? That doesn't make any sense. At the same time, you can't act like all 60 million people who voted for him are all in the Klan, right? You have the Klan in there, but you had a bunch of other people in there. Some of the people in there just didn't like Hillary Clinton. Some of them are just hardcore against abortion. You had a whole bunch of people that voted for him for a bunch of reasons. And I'm not going to make the mistake of giving him all 60 million of those people.
Even women were voting for him, which I found
Which is
appalling.
very crazy.
No, get it right now. 96% of black women voted against him. But
white women.
But the majority of white women voted for him. Now, that's very interesting to me. They often will say that black men are sexist. And we have a lot of sexism in our community that we have to deal with, no doubt. But 88% of black men voted for Hillary Clinton, and we got no credit. In other words, 9 out of 10 black men are ready to have a female commander-in-chief. We got no credit. Meanwhile, only 46% of white women would vote for a white woman. Now, hold on a second. Excuse me. Can we get at least a little bit of amen on the fact that we are more willing than white women to vote for white women as black men? So these are the kinds of things that we don't talk about enough. But that's something that I feel like we should be very proud of, and also, recognize that our communities have been ready. Latinos, Asians, African Americans, Native American communities have been ready for positive change for a long time. And they use big money and gerrymandering and lies in the media to keep our power low because they don't want to go in a positive direction. But if you look at if it was up to us, we would be in very few wars. We would have very strong schools. The environment would be clean. Taxes would be fair. and you'd have a great country. So we shouldn't give up now just because you had one bad election, which exposed a bunch of stuff that's been there. We should double down.
Does it make it hard for you, like, to trust certain white people now? Because they could be sneaky Trump supporters. Like you're married to a white woman. Did you check and make sure she didn't vote for Trump?
I'm quite sure she was in the 46% that voted for Hillary, and she was proud of it and worked hard for it as well. Look, for me, I trust pretty much everybody to be imperfect. That's what I trust. I trust that if you were to follow me around or you around long enough, you would find us doing something that don't make no sense.
All of that.
And so I don't. My expectation isn't perfection for anybody, but my expectation though is that if I don't do this is kind of a tricky way of saying it. I don't know what I can do to help somebody do better, but I know what I can stop doing. It's very hard for black people to trust Republicans overall. Because even when they say something positive, they turn right around, they do 9 other things that are so negative that you got 90% of black people just vote for Democrats. Why? Because they don't seem to like us very much. They don't seem to respect us very much. And it's hard to vote for somebody that don't like you, don't respect you.
Right.
At the same time, if I were a white dude living in Appalachia and I listened to somebody say cracker ass cracker on the radio, I would say, maybe they don't like me.
Right.
Maybe they don't respect me. And it would be hard for me then to vote for them. So all I'm saying is let's at least make sure that we're doing, we aren't doing any of the things that we don't want done. It's the golden rule stuff. It's simple stuff. We flunk in Sunday school and kindergarten right now.
Do unto others.
Yeah, I mean, do unto others. And I mean everybody is flunking Sunday school and kindergarten in terms of how we're treating each other. I don't know if by me reaching out to those coal miners, even one of them would be appreciative or make a change in them. But here's what I do know. When I did that, I stopped Trump from changing me. I don't know if I can change them, but I'm not going to let Trump change me.
Right.
And that's all. That's number one. I'm not going to let this man change me, and I'm not going to let him pull our movements down low.
Right.
I got just a final question. Now, you once said you didn't know how to explain Trump's campaign victory to your children. Now, after him being in for some months, and we've seen how progressively worse it got, how would you explain it to your children now, or any children for that matter?
I would just say this is what happens when both parties do less than what they're supposed to be. Listen, I'm a strong Democrat. I love Democrats. But we didn't handle that campaign the right way. Bernie's people didn't feel respected, and so they didn't really come out the way they were supposed to come out. A lot of African Americans either sat down, took it for granted, or weren't invested in properly to be able to do the voting the way we're supposed to do. So when Democrats don't do what we're supposed to do, we suffer. And then I'm not a Republican, but listen, there are some good Republicans, who are out here, running businesses and doing positive things, but they sit up here and vote for this man and then defend this man. And so if when people stop acting right, you get stuff like this. So it's not, oh, America's bad or he's Antichrist. No, if you lower your standard, the next person will lower their standard, and then we're going to be where we're headed, which is bad.
All right. Well, there you have it. The book, Beyond the Messy Truth. And we appreciate you for joining us.
Oh, thank you. Look, I'm happy to be here.
Don't be a stranger, man.
Good. Have me back. I appreciate it.
All right. It's Van Jones. It's The Breakfast Club. Good morning.